what is next for Hamas and Israel after the killing of Hamas chief Yahya Sinwar in Gaza. The IDF video shows the building where Sinwar was targeted. Israel says its forces killed him during an operation targeting a house in Gaza. Hamas now confirms that their chief is dead. But a top negotiator for the group says hostages won't be returned until the war ends, Israel withdraws, and the Palestinian prisoners are released. Israel also warns that the war is not over.
Today, evil has suffered a heavy blow, but the task before us is not yet complete. Hamas will no longer rule Gaza. This is the beginning of the day after Hamas.
A lot to get to. Matthew Chance will be joining us again this hour from Tel Aviv. That is in just a moment. First, Salma Abdelaziz following developments for us today from London. I think we should start inside Gaza this hour. What's been the reaction there to the official confirmation by Hamas that Yahya Sinwar, the political and military head of that group, has been killed?
Let me begin with a little bit of context, Becky. It's important to remember that Hamas is not an elected government. There have been no elections in Gaza since 2006. That means Palestinians simply do not get a say in who rules them, including, of course, Yahya Sinwar, a very controversial figure, one who really struck fear in the hearts of many Gazans because of his reputation of taking out any potential enemies. Of course, he has supporters, but at a time like this, even critics of Yahya Sinwar are focused on the one major enemy, as Gazans see it, and that is Israel. You are now more than a year into this conflict. At least 42,000 people killed, nearly every single person displaced by this near constant bombardment, and a ground incursion that continues, famine spreading, illness spreading, disease spreading throughout the Gaza Strip. So absolutely for Gazans, their focus is the conflict with the Israeli military, and for them the priority is not what are the political happenings within Hamas or who Israel kills, but quite simply just surviving, Becky, day by day. That is absolutely the priority. That is absolutely the focus in their minds. And it is unlikely that this will change matters on the ground. Yahya Sinwar could easily be replaced, and he could be replaced by an even more hardline figure. So for everyday Gazans, Becky, this only continues that cycle of violence that claims more lives.
Thank you very much indeed. I want to move on to Gideon Levy now, who joins us. He's a columnist with Haaretz newspaper and served as advisor to the former Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres. It's good to have you, sir. I've just been discussing with Salma what happens, what's been the response in Gaza to the news, some 24 hours ago, that Sinwar indeed had been killed by the IDF, and indeed what happens next. What's your assessment, sir?
So first of all, I'm under the impression, if I can be emotional for a moment, I just spoke now with a friend in Gaza that I didn't speak the whole year, and I was sure he was dead, and he's alive. And he told me that there was quite a sense of happiness last night. He's in one of those rescue places in the Moassi, in those tents facilities, and he says there was quite a sense of happiness last night hearing that Sinwar was assassinated, which doesn't mean that all the Palestinians share the same, but there are people in Gaza who were happy last night. In Israel, it's different. If you ask me about Israel, I'll tell you.
Yeah, and that sentiment we have heard reflected from those that are Gazan freelancers and staff have been able to collect. On the one hand, a lot of relief, perhaps, is the term that many have used, but also a sense of what happens to us next. Others are very much mourning Sinwar's death. You then went on to say that is very different, of course, from the sentiment in Israel. Can you just describe what that sentiment is?
So while the Palestinians, for them, those who suffered this year and we, most of us, cannot imagine ourselves their suffer. In Israel, it's a different picture, obviously. And many Israelis saw it as a great achievement, and there was even a sense of joy last night in Israel. I can understand this sentiment. It's very human. I mean, Sinwar, for most of the Israelis, for all the Israelis, was the face of evil, and now he was killed. The main newspaper of Israel gave this morning the headline, "The Death of the Satan," no less than this. Other compared him to Adolf Hitler. This is all understandable and legitimate. The only question is, after this joy, what comes next? I mean, are we in a better place today? And I'm not sure so.
Well, that better place would be a route through, a fork in the road, an opportunity, as Joe Biden has said, for the prospect or the path towards peace. We've heard from the Prime Minister himself, Benjamin Netanyahu, who has said that the war is not over. He has talked about an opportunity going forward, but he also and has also said that we are in the day after Hamas at this point. What do you make of what you've heard from the Prime Minister at this point? How do you read his intentions about what happens next?
I can only guess, but my assessment is that Benjamin Netanyahu, and we have to realize it, never believed in any kind of settlements with the Palestinians. Never. He always believed and still believes, and now after the last so-called military achievements or successes, he believes in it even more, only in living on our sword, only in living on our military force. That's the only guarantee, and that's the only solution. That's a very dangerous ideology, obviously, but it is an ideology that we have to realize that leads him, because people tend to think that he does everything only for his personal survival. I'm not sure. I think that he really believes that there is no room for any kind of settlement with the Palestinians, which means that Israel will live from war to war, because they will never give up, and the resistance will never stop, because that's the nature of people. If they are oppressed, they are resisting. And this means that we are doomed to live like this for decades. I hope that this ideology will be proven as wrong, and we will replace it with a new ideology. But right now, I don't see anyone in Israel who calls for a different ideology.
Gideon Levy's perspective as we continue to question what happens next. Let me just bring in Matthew Chance, my colleague. Israel today, Matthew, as I understand it, calling up additional reserve brigades to northern Israel, pressing on with its war on a number of fronts. Of course, it talks about being at war on 7 fronts at the moment. We're talking very specifically about the front in and with Lebanon. What do we understand to be the detail, and what is the intention there at this point? Is the end game any clearer?
Well, clearly the intention is to show that at this stage Israel is not letting up any pressure on Lebanon or indeed on Iran. There have been meetings, very high-level meetings over the course of the day with the Israeli Prime Minister and his top security officials, including the Defense Minister of Israel, to talk about the extent to which the killing of Yahya Sinwar, the Hamas leader in Gaza on Wednesday, may have an impact on the timing of any further military operations in Lebanon and in Iran. They haven't released any details about any concrete measures or any steps they're going to be taking, but they have said in a joint statement that a window of opportunity has been opened with the killing of Sinwar. Again, sort of reiterating this idea that because of the death of this key figure in the Palestinian militant group Hamas, it may be a time for renewed negotiations. And indeed, my sources inside the Israeli government tell me they're trying to create pressure quickly with surviving Hamas officials on the ground who may be holding hostages, to get them to set those hostages free in exchange for some kind of clemency. Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, has made a specific offer to members of Hamas, saying that he will let them live if they wave the white flag and they surrender the hostages they may be holding at this stage. Again, the problem, or part of the problem, is that so far Hamas are not giving any indication that they're willing to sort of play along. There's been a statement from a senior political figure at Hamas acknowledging the death of Yahya Sinwar at the hands of Israeli troops. They waited a couple of days before they did that. There's been a further statement, also very defiant, basically saying that Israeli hostages will not be released until such times as Israel's aggression, in their words, against the people of Gaza has come to an end. So yes, it's a hopeful moment. It's potentially a window of opportunity and a pivotal moment, but it's not a certainty that anything concrete will come out of this except for more fighting. And so that's the grim reality, I think, of the situation now as we monitor what will happen over the coming days and weeks.